The Democratic Republic of Congo has some of the richest natural resources on Earth: gold, copper, cobalt, coltan, diamonds, and enormous reserves of other minerals that power the modern global economy. Yet for decades, Congo has struggled with war, political instability, armed groups, displacement, and one of the world's most persistent humanitarian crises. Today, much of the world's attention is focused on one name, M23, and increasingly on Rwanda. But if you want to understand why Eastern Congo is still at war, you have to go much further back, because this crisis did not begin with M23. It did not begin with Rwanda. And it certainly did not begin with today's generation of politicians. The roots go back more than a century, to colonial exploitation, to the chaotic birth of an independent Congo, to coups and dictatorship, to contested citizenship and identity, to the aftermath of the Rwandan genocide, to regional wars involving several African countries, and yes, to the enormous value of Congo's natural resources. This is the story of how all of those forces became connected, and why, after decades of war, Congo still struggles to find lasting peace. To understand modern Congo, we have to begin in the 19th century. At the time, European powers were competing for territory across Africa, and in the center of the continent was an enormous territory that would eventually become the Democratic Republic of Congo. King Leopold II of Belgium established personal control over the Congo Free State. What followed was an economic system built around extracting wealth from the territory. Rubber became especially valuable, but the system depended heavily on forced labor, coercion, violence, and extreme exploitation. Millions of Congolese suffered under this system. Eventually, international criticism became overwhelming, and in 1908, Belgium took direct control of the territory. The Congo Free State became the Belgian Congo. But changing the administrator did not fundamentally change the basic economic relationship. The territory was still being developed primarily around extraction. Its enormous size and resources were valuable. Its people were governed by a colonial system that gave them little political power, and this created a legacy that would matter enormously when independence finally arrived. On June 30th, 1960, the Belgian Congo became independent. The new country was renamed the Republic of the Congo. But independence came with extraordinary speed and very little preparation for democratic self-government. The country was enormous, its population was diverse, its institutions were weak, and the colonial army remained dominated by structures inherited from Belgian rule. Just days after independence, the army mutinied. Then came another problem. The mineral-rich province of Katanga attempted to break away. Foreign interests became involved. The country descended into political chaos, and at the center of this crisis was the country's first prime minister, Patrice Lumumba. Lumumba wanted a strong, unified Congo, but his political struggle quickly became entangled in Cold War competition. Belgium, the United States, the Soviet Union, and other actors all had strategic interests in what was happening. In 1961, Lumumba was assassinated. His death became one of the defining tragedies of post-colonial African history, and Congo's democratic experiment was already beginning to collapse. In 1965, Mobutu Sese Seko seized power in a military coup. He would rule Congo for more than 3 decades. The country was renamed Zaire. For years, Mobutu maintained a powerful centralized regime. During the Cold War, his government became an important Western ally, but behind the appearance of stability, The state was deteriorating. Corruption became deeply entrenched. Political institutions weakened. The economy suffered, and public services deteriorated. The government remained powerful at the center, but the ability of the state to effectively govern such a vast territory became increasingly limited. This distinction is important because Congo's later conflicts were not simply caused by foreign countries. They were also enabled by the weakness of the Congolese state itself. When institutions cannot provide security, justice, citizenship, or economic opportunity, other actors begin to fill the vacuum. And in Eastern Congo, those actors increasingly became armed groups. Then there was another problem, one that is often oversimplified. Who is Congolese? In Eastern Congo, especially in North and South Kivu, communities with historical and family connections across today's borders have lived for generations. Some populations identified as Banyarwanda. Among them were both Hutu and Tutsi communities. Their presence in the region has deep historical roots, but citizenship, land ownership, political representation, and belonging became intensely contested. Who had the right to own land? Who had the right to vote? Who was considered a native? Who was considered a foreigner? These questions were not simply ethnic, they were political, they were legal, and they were connected to access to land and power. By the 1990s, these unresolved tensions had become explosive. And then the history of neighboring Rwanda changed everything. In 1994, Rwanda experienced the genocide against the Tutsi. Around 800,000 people were killed in roughly 100 days. When the Rwandan Patriotic Front took control of Rwanda, enormous numbers of people fled across the border into what was then Zaire. Among the refugees were civilians, but armed elements of the former Rwandan government and forces associated with the genocide also entered eastern Zaire. The refugee camps became militarized. From the perspective of Rwanda's new government, this represented a security threat. Armed groups based in Congo were capable of launching attacks back into Rwanda. For Rwanda, this was not simply a question of Congo's internal politics. It was a national security problem, and Rwanda eventually intervened militarily. But that intervention would help trigger something much larger. In 1996, Rwanda, Uganda, and their allies supported forces led by Laurent Désiré Kabila. Their forces advanced across Zaire. Mobutu's government collapsed. In 1997, Mobutu fled the country. Kabila took power, and Zaire became the Democratic Republic of Congo. For a moment, it looked as if a new beginning was possible, but it did not last. Kabila soon turned against his former Rwandan and Ugandan allies. The alliance that had helped bring him to power was breaking apart, and the consequences would be enormous. In 1998, rebellion erupted again. Rwanda and Uganda backed rebel movements in eastern Congo. Kabila's government received military support from countries including Angola, Zimbabwe, and Namibia. Burundi also became involved. What had begun as a Congolese crisis had now become a regional war. Multiple African armies were operating inside Congo. Multiple rebel groups controlled territory, and the country's enormous natural wealth became increasingly important. The Second Congo War eventually became one of the deadliest conflicts since the Second World War. Millions of people died during the broader period of conflict, with deaths resulting not only from direct fighting, but also from hunger, disease, displacement, and the collapse of basic services. And while governments fought for strategic reasons, another economy was developing beneath the war: the economy of minerals. Congo is extraordinarily rich in natural resources. The country possesses huge deposits of copper and cobalt. Its eastern provinces contain gold, tin, tantalum-bearing minerals such as coltan, and other valuable resources. These minerals are important to industries around the world. Cobalt is essential to many rechargeable batteries. Tantalum is used in electronic components. Gold is valuable everywhere. And in a country where the state's control over remote territory is often weak, valuable minerals can become a source of power. Armed groups can tax mines, they can control roads, they can force miners to pay, they can participate in smuggling networks, and neighboring countries can become transit points for minerals leaving Congo. The United Nations has repeatedly documented links between armed groups, mineral exploitation, and cross-border trafficking. But this is where we need to be careful. It would be wrong to say Congo is at war because foreigners want its minerals. That explanation is too simple. Minerals are part of their story, but they interact with political weakness, armed groups, local land disputes, regional security concerns, corruption, and the interests of neighboring states. In other words, the minerals can help finance conflict, but they did not create every reason for the conflict to exist. The Second Congo War formally ended with a series of peace agreements and a political transition. But Eastern Congo never became completely peaceful. The national government struggled to establish full authority across the region. Former rebels were integrated into the national army. Some later rebelled again, new armed groups emerged, old grievances remained, and communities continued to fear one another. The state remained weak in many rural areas. For ordinary Congolese people, peace on paper did not necessarily mean peace on the ground. Then came M23. The March 23rd movement, better known as M23, emerged in 2012 after former rebels integrated into the Congolese army mutinied. The group quickly captured territory in North Kivu, including Goma. International pressure forced M23 to withdraw from Goma. By 2013, the movement had suffered a major military defeat, but it did not disappear permanently. Years later, M23 re-emerged. Beginning in 2021, the group launched a new offensive, and this time, the movement became far more powerful. The United Nations has documented military support from Rwanda to M23. Rwanda has repeatedly argued that its security concerns, particularly the presence of the FDLR, an armed group formed in part from elements linked to the former Rwandan government and genocide, must be addressed. The Congolese government, meanwhile, has accused Rwanda of violating its sovereignty and supporting M23. The United Nations has called for the withdrawal of Rwandan forces and an end to support for M23, while also calling on the Congolese government to address armed groups operating from its territory. So the current conflict is not simply Congo versus Rwanda. There are Congolese armed groups. There are regional security concerns. There are political grievances. There are local ethnic and citizenship disputes. There are national armies. There are foreign interests. And there are mineral networks. All of these forces overlap.
And while governments negotiate and armed groups fight for territory, ordinary Congolese people pay the price. Families are displaced. Communities are separated. Children grow up surrounded by conflict. Women and girls face horrific levels of conflict-related sexual violence. Businesses collapse. Schools close. And millions of people are forced to move repeatedly in search of safety. This is one of the most important things to remember when discussing Congo. The conflict is not an abstract geopolitical game. Every territory captured on a map represents people living there. Every road controlled by an armed group affects civilians. Every mine controlled through violence affects workers and families. And every failed peace agreement creates another generation that has to live with the consequences. This is where the Congo story becomes uncomfortable. Because there is no single villain capable of explaining everything. Congolese political elites have made decisions that weakened institutions. The Congolese army has been accused of serious abuses and has sometimes relied on armed groups. Rwanda has intervened militarily in Congo and has been accused by the United Nations of supporting M23. Uganda has also played major military and economic roles in eastern Congo during different periods. Burundi has been involved in the region's security dynamics. Armed groups have committed atrocities and fought over territory and resources. International companies and traders have participated in mineral supply chains that are difficult to trace. And foreign governments have repeatedly pursued strategic interests in the region. The point is not to create a list of villains. The point is to understand the system. Because systems can survive even after individual leaders disappear. Imagine Congo's crisis as a series of layers. At the bottom is the colonial legacy. Then comes a fragile post-independence state. Then dictatorship and institutional decay. Then unresolved questions of citizenship, land and identity. Then the 1994 Rwandan genocide and its regional consequences. Then the Congo Wars. Then the proliferation of armed groups. Then competition over territory and minerals. And finally, a regional security system in which neighboring countries have their own fears and interests. Each layer reinforces another. Weak institutions make armed groups stronger. Armed groups make communities seek protection. Regional insecurity encourages neighboring states to intervene. Intervention creates new grievances. Grievances create new rebellions. And control over valuable resources can help finance the entire system. That is why solving Congo's crisis is so difficult. Because there isn't one problem. There are many problems connected together. The Democratic Republic of Congo is not simply a country defined by war. It is a country of more than 100 million people. A country with enormous agricultural potential. A country with extraordinary mineral wealth. A country with major rivers, forests, cities, entrepreneurs, artists, engineers, and a young population. The question is whether Congo can build institutions strong enough to turn that potential into prosperity. That means security. It means accountable government. It means functioning courts. It means resolving citizenship and land disputes. It means professionalizing the security forces. It means reducing the power of armed groups. It means creating legal and transparent mineral supply chains. And it means addressing the security concerns of neighboring countries without sacrificing Congolese sovereignty. Peace cannot simply mean defeating one armed group. Because history shows that when the deeper problems remain, another armed group can eventually emerge. So when you see the headlines about M23, when you hear about Rwanda, when you see images of fighting in Goma or South Kivu, remember that you are looking at the latest chapter of a much longer story. Congo's crisis was not created overnight. It was built over generations. Colonial exploitation. A chaotic independence. Political assassinations. Military rule. Weak institutions. Identity and citizenship disputes. Regional wars. Foreign interventions. Armed groups. Mineral networks. And the struggle to control one of the world's most resource-rich territories. The tragedy is that Congo has enormous wealth. But millions of its people have not been able to benefit from it. And perhaps the biggest question is not whether Congo has enough resources to become prosperous. It is whether Congo can finally build the political and security institutions capable of protecting those resources. And, most importantly, protecting its people. This is Universal Plans. Big plans. Bigger stories.